Hello, First Pres Church family. Pastor Dan here with another Wednesday word of encouragement. Last week, I shared with you all that I was beginning a sermon series on spiritual formation. And we had the first sermon on that last Sunday, and it was talking about spiritual formation by means of the spiritual discipline of prayer. Last Wednesday and on Sunday, I told you that in my definition of spiritual formation, it involves both process and journey of life. The process side is the spiritual discipline. And the journey of life, well, wherever your life is at, is creating circumstances that hopefully both the process and the life journey working together bring about a greater deepening openness to God. And that is the goal of spiritual formation. It's not so much the goal that you become this or that, but it's more the goal that in spiritual formation, you're really opening yourself up via the process and via your journey of life to a deeper connection with God. This week, the spiritual discipline that we're going to talk about is study, the spiritual discipline of study. And we're not talking so much about devotional-like study. Devotional-like study is good. That's where you might be reading through a devotional book by Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest, or maybe by Sarah Young, Jesus is Calling. And you go to the page or pages that are earmarked for this particular date in the year. And it usually takes you 2 to 3 minutes to read through. And there's usually a question that you ponder and then a prayer that you say. And in all, these devotional times usually range from about 5 minutes to 7 minutes long. These are good things. I want to encourage that if you have that practice or from time to time in your spiritual practice, you involve yourself with a devotional guide like that, that's awesome. That can be a great way to start your day. It can be a great day to end your day if you prefer to do that before bed. Those devotional thoughts can be powerful ways that God reveals something to us about himself, or reveals something about us, or gives us direction in our lives. The spiritual discipline of study, though, really is much more about the idea of focusing on a particular aspect of the Bible or of our faith or of the life of Jesus or of the spiritual life or discipleship. I could go on and on, but the idea is that you really take some dedicated time to focus. The verse we're going to be looking at this week is Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, where the Apostle Paul charges the Philippian church by saying, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and praiseworthy." Paul is charging the Philippian church to be studying those things that God has made for us to learn, discover, and to draw benefit from. And of course, we have this gift called the Bible that we could never in our lifetime completely empty it of all the possible study we might do in it. I want to tell you that back in 2012, I attended a conference where the speaker said something that I haven't forgotten in the 9 years later. And it's been a very strong directive in my life that the speaker shared. And the speaker said, he wanted to encourage us who were in the conference to join him in becoming very studious about the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He said, a lot of people today are emphasizing the idea of reading the Bible cover to cover every year or over 3 years. And he said, I think that's great. I want to affirm you if you're doing that. I want to affirm others that are involved in it. But what I would like to suggest is I find that a lot of us as followers of Christ are not as well versed in the Gospels as I would like us to be. And he did something very interesting. He picked up his Bible and he basically showed it like this. And he said, look, the Gospels are this thick out of the whole entire Bible. That thick. That's approximately 100 pages in my Bible here. He said, what would happen if we really committed to becoming experts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? These are the Gospels that present in the most detail the life of Jesus. These are the Gospels that share about the beginnings of the church. These are the Gospels that contain the Sermon on the Mount. These are the Gospels that contain some very detailed expositions on the final week of Jesus's life and his passion. These Gospels are an immense treasure to us as Christians. And we become familiar with them, I think, most of all through Sunday school as a child. And they become so familiar to us that I think sometimes we think that we know more about the details within them than we really do. And, it's oftentimes that when we happen to be playing like a Bible trivia game, we are asked a question about Jesus's miracles, the feeding of the 5,000, or we are asked a question that would be, the answer would be found in the Sermon on the Mount, and we don't know how to answer it. And we all of a sudden realize, wow, maybe I haven't really sharpened my mind on the details of the Gospels. So over the last 9 years, I've felt the encouragement from that conference I went to revisit the Gospels frequently. And one of the ways I do that is I try to get in a habit on a weekly basis of reading through one of the Gospels. Now, I am not perfect at this, and there's weeks that go that I don't do that. But over the last 9 years, I try to make sure that each week I'm reading through one of the Gospels. And so therefore, these Gospels can contain anywhere from about 16 chapters to 28 chapters. And so you got to divide up your 7 days, and so at any one sitting, you might be reading 3 or 4, maybe 5 chapters. And I find that to be really helpful. And it solidifies for me things about Jesus that I really need to know, things about what Jesus taught that I really need to know. Jesus's relationship with the apostles is seen in some detail. Those are things I really need to know. It's really helpful. Now, we can study in other ways. And one of the things I'm going to be suggesting is we need to go to classics. Things that are classics. Now, there are classics like the Confessions by St. Augustine, but there's also 20th century classics that have become incredibly important for followers of Christ to read, like Knowing God by J.I. Packer. This is a book that I have owned probably since right around college time, and I have reread it, and I've got earmarked pages and underlines, and but what J.I. Packer does in this classic is he takes from Scripture what we learn about God, who God is, how God acts, what through Jesus's life did we learn about God. And ultimately, this knowing is not just about having trivial knowledge about God, but it's about actually relationship, knowing God in relationship. It's a classic. This is a book that, I would hope any of my children not only would read once in their lifetime, but that they'd read it a half dozen to a dozen times in their lifetime, because of the great treasure troves of knowledge that are in this, and how it directs us back to Scripture in a very positive way. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we try to encourage the study of Scripture as a spiritual discipline here at the church with our weekly sermon preparation study guide. And we have another one this week that begins with Philippians 4:8, but there's a lot of other scriptures all throughout it that are going to encourage us to be people of study. So don't miss that opportunity. It came through email last night. If you didn't get it, let us know. We can re-email it to you. So my encouragement to you is study. Study the Gospels. Become an expert in those 100 pages of the Bible. And let that expertise impact how you live your life each day for Jesus. My encouragement is that there's a lot of things we can say we don't know. But as the Apostle Paul encouraged that church, if we give ourselves to study, there's a lot of things we can know about God, about the Bible, about discipleship, about the church, about how to live our lives as Jesus has instructed. Hey, I love y'all, and I'm praying that you will be here Sunday morning as I talk further about study. Hey, God bless y'all. Bye-bye.